I'm home.
Throws to the near side, and that's intercepted. Intercepted by Jack Jones, heading down the near sideline, and this will be a pick six for Jack Jones and a touchdown for Arizona State.
People here, when you think of Sun Devil football, you think of Sun Devil for life.
Here we go, 7 seconds. Berkovici. He's just going to air it out deep downfield, and no white shirts around. Oh, Jalen Strong! Caught for a touchdown! Jalen Strong makes the catch!
I went to Arizona State. Right. I'm a Sun Devil, man.
This is about the Valley. We need the Valley. If we get the Valley all in, the sky is the limit.
Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
One thing that we like to say, and that we have said a lot, is that there really is no offseason in college football. Things have been coming fast and furious for the Sun Devils over the last 9-10 weeks since Kenny Dillingham and staff arrived in Tempe. But right now is probably a good chance that we can all catch our breath and kind of really take stock of everything that's happened. National Signing Day, the traditional February version, is now in the rear view mirror. Now, while signings still can happen over the course of this time frame up until April 1st, it is a good time to kind of take stock of what has happened, including one major addition.
Yeah, it really does feel like kind of a point you can catch your breath because, man, it has been a flurry over the last month or two. Ever since Kenny Dillingham took the reins at ASU, he made a claim to attack the portal. And brothers and sisters, that was not coach speak, because ASU did that as well as any program in the country. And the numbers and the names prove that. It is kind of wild, in retrospect. And it's just another thing in this new world order of college sports and college football that, man, that first Wednesday in February used to be like Christmas Day. That signing day was a wild thing, but, now it's just kind of like a supplemental day. Now, granted, it was real big for the Sun Devils, so there were some, gifts under the tree, so to speak. That's for dang sure, but just a little bit different, I kind of felt that, that normal NLI day feeling, I think, on that first day of the transfer portal, because that was wild for the Sun Devils. But nonetheless, this signing class is taking shape. You can't really put it in the past tense because, as you mentioned, there will be another transfer portal window coming up here in a couple months, and players can continue to sign here over the next few months, whether from the high school or JUCO ranks, and ASU probably will have some coming in. So it's not a full stop yet, but it is a chance for us to take a quick pause and assess things as they are in this new era of Sun Devil football.
It has been absolutely wild. 43 new official additions to the Sun Devil roster over this time frame. That is tied for most in the country with Colorado.
That's half. I mean, you have 85 scholarships. That's literally, a tick over half of your scholarship roster, and it had to be done. I mean, you say that and think it might be in a negative connotation, like, oh my goodness, that's a massive amount of turnover. Yeah, you got to look back at what has happened these last few years in this program. So, a major thing.
Absolutely. 40. So the facelift of in this transition and transformation of Sun Devil football has been pretty remarkable. And as you mentioned, it's not going to be done because this signing period that opened on February 1st runs through April 1st. So those high school and JUCO guys that are still looking for a home can still put, I don't know, do they still put pen to paper, or is everything electronic these days? But also the May 1st through 15th will be the second iteration of the transfer portal window opening, so there'll be some more churn there. So probably some more Sun Devils leaving, and some more new Sun Devils that will be arriving. But we got a lot of talk to catch you up on in terms of what ASU was able to do since we last talked to you on the signing day, and that of course includes landing a major piece, a blue chip quarterback in Jaden Rashada. We'll be breaking down what his addition means for this program. A little bit later on, we're going to be talking to Cole Topham of DevilsDigest.com. The brilliant X's and O's man. Had a chance to catch up with him, and he's somebody who's done a real good deep dive analysis into both Kenny Dillingham's offense and Jaden Rashada himself, and how Rashada should fit in this high-powered Dillingham attack. And a little bit later on, as we close out the show, had a chance to sit down with ASU offensive line coach Saga Tuitele, get his thoughts on the newcomers on his offensive line. A good mix of veteran presence and, of course, some guys that are younger, but could be a big force up there up front for the Sun Devils in the years to come. But let's first dive into the news. A couple items that we should catch you up on. Probably the biggest and most, I've seen a lot of folks just really kind of saying that this is yet another obvious but great move that the Sun Devils program has put in place, that they're tying the spring game into Pat's Run. That's right, the ASU spring game to cap off spring practices will be the afternoon of April 15th, right after the annual Pat's Run event.
And that's how it used to be, or there have been years in the past, because in years past I was deeply involved in Pat's Run from a volunteer committee perspective, and I remember some days that I would go to the spring game and I was roasted from the morning because it can be a warm day out there in Sun Devil Stadium in April for Pat's Run. So yeah, this is a move that has been done before, and it's just a cool way to get everybody engaged and involved in everything ASU, because of course, as we all know, Pat's Run is a very inspiring, motivating event and day. So it's just a good opportunity to keep everybody in the atmosphere, in positive spirits, and focused on some good days ahead. So, yeah, that'll be a big day, a long day, but a great day if you're a Sun Devil.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just makes so much sense just to tie those two events together. You're having tens of thousands of people down there anyway. It's free admission into the spring game. You get to see this squad with so many new faces. Jaden Rashada should be amongst that group, as he's going to be figures to be an early enrollee, as well as so many of the other key additions that we've had over the last few weeks. But yeah, it's going to be should be a great day, and should hopefully become the standard practice, because ASU's had some spring game attendance issues in the past, and Kenny Dillingham's been talking about activating the Valley. He wants 40,000 people in Sun Devil Stadium. Perhaps on a standalone event on a normal spring good weather Saturday, it might be a little tough, but you tie it into an event like Pat's Run, I think you're going to have a little bit more buzz, more energy, and greater attendance as a result. So ASU, as we will talk about, was pretty active on National Signing Day on February 1st, last Wednesday, as they secured some signatures for the 2023 class. But they're also active on the 2024 front as well. Wide receiver Elijah Besa committed. He is a 3-star receiver on Rivals, but a 4-star so far on 24/7. 6'1", 175 pounds out of Mesquite, Texas. Sun Devils are looking forward.
Yeah, and you're getting guys out of Texas, and that is no accident. With the recruiters that are on staff that focus in that state and that area, and that's not the only one. You look at some of the players that have been announcing about taking official and unofficial visits. You're looking at nationally elite, high 5-star caliber players that are having this discussion.
Single-digit overall ranking type guys.
Yeah, and ones that, come from programs that are led by family members of ASU's staff members. So you're talking about connections in action. So, far be it from me to ever question moves from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, since that is the origin of my life in Dallas, Texas. So you love to see that. Obviously some incredible football played in the great state of Texas. And if you're going after, because ASU, has obviously scored some high prospects in like the Eno Benjamins of the world, and even some, lower scale ones where you kind of think that even like a 2 or a 3-star from Texas is going to be, better than a 3 or 4-star from a lot of other states. But goodness gracious, if ASU can be in the conversation for a 4- and 5-star players from the state of Texas, if you can get in that door, that is something where you can really shift the shape of this program. So, yeah, this staff is not wasting any time, and they're not just singularly focused on this 2023 class and putting together the personnel for year one under Dillingham. They are already looking ahead in a number of respects. We've seen it as far as in-state players having been on campus, in the recent months, just really forging those relationships for the future. So this staff is doing an incredible job of, as you mentioned, putting in nearly 50. By the time it's all said and done, I'm sure that they're going to surpass 50 players on the roster that are brand new. I mean, it's you really think that they're going, they're certainly going to add, I'd say 5 to 10 more, you know what I'm saying, by the time it's all said and done. That wouldn't surprise me if they hit that half-century mark as far as new players on the roster, but that's not their only focus. So the energy and the effort and everything the staff is doing, it's creating dividends, not just now, but creating those relationships. You always hear that word from Kenny Dillingham and staff, relationships. They are being built now, and the product of those relationships could be found sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's really great to see just real aggressive forward thinking by this staff, just kind of getting ahead of the ball, because not only they were, as a new staff, they were definitely behind the 8 ball for the 23s, but they closed pretty well here, but also laying that groundwork for the 24s and the 25s and just leveraging those connections. And we'll certainly dive into this in greater detail in the weeks and months ahead. But, guys like Rashad Samples and Brian Carrington, those young bucks who have those Texas ties, just getting out there and doing the work and laying the foundation and making those relationships. And obviously both of those guys spent extensive time, at schools like TCU and Texas and Houston. So they have that FBS and those experience and connections. And to see that where this train could be headed, it's you got to be pretty excited if you're a Sun Devil fan. One other quick news note to pass along, just because it was ASU's first verbal commitment in the 2023 class, but obviously quarterback Israel Carter did not sign with ASU, and once the new staff came in and the recruiting and transfer portal additions at the position were what they were, he was left to kind of make his look where his destination elsewhere. Izzy Carter has landed at USF, so he's heading to South Florida. So good kid. We've had him on the show. So best of luck for Izzy in his career down there.
It's a solid program to be at, but obviously as the world turned for the Sun Devils, they are sitting pretty when it comes to the freshman quarterback in the 2023 class. So it seems like a situation where pretty much everybody wins.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that, because we were as we on our last episode, we kind of broke down where ASU stood in terms of all the additions to that point, and we're expecting just a handful on the traditional signing day on Wednesday, February 1st. But something happened, Joe, that made your dad tweet out, dare I say, Kenny blank Dillingham. A bunch of asterisks, kind of in the mold of the Bobby F. and Hurley type, which I thought was perhaps the greatest tweet I've seen in a long time. A real seismic signing for the Sun Devils. We'll get into just the how in a moment, but just something of the magnitude of landing one of the elite quarterbacks in the country that just kind of falls in your lap in short order to cap off a fast and furious several weeks is when he gets the voice to tweet out something like that. Oh, it's great. You'd love to see it.
It takes a little bit to get old Tim riled up and even imply some colorful language. A little different from me, where you let him slip from time to time. But yeah, it was just a whirlwind of a few weeks that really came together. Obviously on signing day with Jaden Rashada, 4-star quarterback, a guy with just a massively high ceiling. Someone whose name has been discussed within the circles of ASU, largely because his father, Harlan, was a defensive back for the Devils in the 1990s. So you hope that father-son combination, that pedigree could come together in Tempe for Rashada to be a Sun Devil. The news is out there. It's been plenty discussed as far as circumstances with Miami and Florida, schools that he was committed to in different forms and fashions over the previous months. But his signature became available in the weeks leading up to National Signing Day here in February. He visited ASU, I believe, like the next to last week leading up to signing day, and then visited TCU. A lot of Sun Devil fans were thinking, okay, TCU is a little bit off the beaten path when it comes to a recruit from California, but of course they did just go to the national championship game. Their quarterback was a Heisman Trophy finalist. There's a lot, in their corner in that regard. But when it came down to it, the news was feeling good leading into signing day, and he didn't really waste any time, because I think it was not too late in the morning that Jaden Rashada made his commitment public on social media, and the signature followed not too terribly long after, and he became a Sun Devil and really gave Kenny Dillingham a major player in the game, securing his first really big get in the high school recruiting ranks. Of course, there were a few players in the early signing period that are, high 3 or 4-star caliber athletes, but this is just a different level when you're able to go in and get, a top 10 quarterback in the nation, someone that, can bring a recognizable family name back to this program and potentially lead this program, into a new era.
Yeah, Sun Devil legacy is coming back to, he was a target under the old staff, but, as things progressed, he looked elsewhere, ultimately committing to Miami before signing with Florida. And then, of course, as we talked about in the emergency episode, some of the behind-the-scenes drama with the Gator Collective and them kind of failing to perhaps, stick to their deal. He was granted his release, and that was much to ASU's benefit. Kind of a whirlwind time frame there in terms of after getting that release. And, with a number of schools, obviously, if you're a talent of that caliber, you have a number of schools after him. It seemed like ASU and TCU were the two teams most well-positioned to get him. But a top 50 overall national recruit on 24/7, an Under Armour All-American. As you mentioned, Joe, a 4-star coming over from Pittsburgh, California, in Northern California. And it's you can't kind of overstate the importance of a new staff. I mean, anytime you get a blue-chip quarterback like this, it's huge for your program. But for a new staff, I think it really kind of speaks volumes. I asked Brian Carrington what getting Rashada meant for this program. And Carrington immediately just kind of talked about what it says actually about Kenny as the leader of the program, and shows that, to quote Carrington, he knows how to go into the furnace and come out victorious, and it's such a feather in Kenny's cap that people should watch out going forward. So, obviously, as you mentioned, Joe, they were able to get a couple of guys that, depending on the service, had some 4-star rankings. Obviously, you get a number of guys that had 4-star rankings coming out of high school that they were able to add in the transfer portal, some big names as well. But when you get a blue chip quarterback, there's just something different about getting a guy of that stature at that position to buy into your vision and to your program. And, people were saying that, with the black cloud of the NCAA investigation, you're not going to be able to get top-tier talent to Tempe. Well, it just seems like over these last 9-10 weeks, it seems like all these excuses that, naysayers or some of the more pessimistic fans have been throwing at this program for a while, one by one, keep getting knocked down and tossed to the wayside. Now, granted, this hasn't resulted in any wins yet, and we won't know that for a while. But it's hard to envision an offseason going a whole lot better than what has transpired since late November.
I mean, the rumors of ASU's demise may be somewhat overstated. I mean, you look back at, the recruiting class a year ago, and this is not a shot at the people that, comprise that class, rather. It's just different. I mean, it was tiny, not a lot of star power. When it comes to the transfers, you got some high level guys, but not a tremendous amount of depth. Nothing compared to what you're dealing with now. I mean, now you're getting 4-star caliber players. You're getting top 100 caliber players. You're getting guys that, you're filling a full class. You're getting a sizable signing class with talent. It's something that a lot of folks, I would imagine, thought this sort of class would maybe take 3 to 5 years to put together, no matter who the coach is. So to be able to do this right out of the gates, and you add to that just the quantity of players, it's truly, truly impressive. Going back to Rashada specifically, as he became available, it's one of those guys like you gotta get. It made too much sense. It's like, okay, he's on the market. He's an ASU legacy. The Sun Devils have been around for him as far as just a name that was hat that was in the ring, so to speak. So that's one that you got to close. All the signs pointed toward it. That doesn't mean that it was an easy thing by any stretch or automatic by any stretch, but that was one that just made a lot of sense. So it came to fruition. It's one of those ones that had it gone the other way, had it been TCU, that would have been, it would have made sense to a degree, but man, that would have been frustrating to a lot of folks. So for ASU to, acquire his services, big deal on paper. It's something that certainly I'm sure catches the attention of recruits that, maybe are starting to think about ASU, or maybe even ones that didn't think about ASU. These are how these things get started. I mean, we saw it previously, when Jaden Daniels was here, there were guys that came to play ball with him. That was in the conversation when you get the Johnny Wilsons and the LV Bunkley Sheltons of the world. Obviously, every single one of those players I just mentioned are at other schools right now, but the moral of the story still remains that this can be the first domino to tip in a direction that creates a ton of momentum. And oh, by the way, you get a very talented player at the quarterback position. Now we'll see how things pan out short and long term, but again, a massive win for this program on signing day, and just the momentum is continuing to incrementally build. As you mentioned, of course, this coaching staff is still 0-0 when it comes to wins and losses. But when you're talking about the little wins and the little losses, this is a big win in the category of relatively little wins, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the interesting angles here is, of course, since Kenny came back, the one of the big messages has been just, come home. The importance of local, of Arizona ties. And in Jaden's tweet announcing his commitment to Arizona State, he said, quote, "My childhood dream school, my father's alma mater, a place where I'm happy, and a school where the head coach has always had my back." Now, of course, Jaden and Kenny have had that relationship since, I believe since Kenny was at Florida State. Now, of course, and then, of course, moving to Oregon last year as the OC, developing that relationship, and during that recruitment process was pretty big. But what I found to be interesting is like when Kenny Dillingham had talked to us on Thursday in the post signing day press conference, he was asked about Jaden, and he said that landing Rashada, quote, shows that being happy still matters. Now, obviously, there's a whole lot of noise out there on the NIL stuff, and that's whatever it is. But at the center of it, you have a kid and is ultimately choosing a place where he's happy, where it's not about the dollars, where he wants to feel comfortable. And this is Kenny also mentioned a nice anecdote that Jaden showed him a picture that he drew when he was 8 years old of him playing for the Sun Devils. Little pencil sketch that young Jaden Rashada made. So being a Sun Devil, wearing that maroon and gold has been something that Jaden Rashada has thought about for a long time, since he was a kid, and now he's locked in. He's going to be the newest addition to a pretty crowded quarterback room. Now we'll see, if he's able to kind of come in and continue to start like Jaden Daniels did as a true freshman, if he's able to do that, or if Trenton Bourguet is able to hold on to that job. Drew Pine coming over from Notre Dame, of course. Jacob Conover, Bennett Meredith is in that group as well. So, but he's slated right now to be an early enrollee and participate in spring ball. That's going to be huge. But just in terms of just it checks all the boxes, really, what you're looking for. Obviously, talent trumps everything. Yeah, and he has that, as an elite blue chip quarterback recruit. But it also, in terms of, it just has that validating factor for this new staff and a young head coach in Kenny Dillingham. And of course, just also the local tie to it. The strength of just kind of the, coming and feeling home, whether it's those people that, were born and raised directly in Arizona, or perhaps those that have more of a legacy tie, like Jaden did with his father.
Yeah, I mean, there's something special about that legacy element, and something additionally special about those guys that played with and around the time of that Rose Bowl team. I mean, that's something special that was built there, and the caliber of players that they played with. It's something that here, even 25 plus years later, still is something big, and this is a product of that. For Jaden Rashada, living away from Tempe in a completely different state, decades after his father played here, to still have that allegiance and that dedication to Arizona State that is not the dream school for everybody. It's not a flashy school. It's not a USC for a kid growing up in LA. Like, that's an easy thing. It's not Texas for someone that grows up in Austin or Florida, Miami, etc. Notre Dame for somebody who grows up in that area, where these just big illustrious fabled schools. So that that says something to me, that a kid has ASU as his dream school. That's important. And as you mentioned, man, just feeling good about the right situation can take you far, and a lot of trust. And I hope and truly believe that Kenny Dillingham's a straight shooter with him in this recruitment, because you think about a high profile quarterback, you think about just the NIL concept, and you wonder, okay, wow, is he, what kind of promises are out there? Is this something where you got to see him in day one because he came here with certain expectations? I feel like Dillingham, you'd imagine, shoots straight, and obviously going to play the most talented guys, but there also might be a need to be patient and develop. So we'll see how it all transpires. As you mentioned, as we know, very jam-packed quarterback room. I mean, this is as busy a quarterback room as we've seen in many years, and maybe going back to the Berkovici, Taylor Kelly, Michael Eubank days. But I mean, man, we're talking 3 to 4 to 5 guys that are going to compete. So it's going to be really something interesting here in spring and beyond. But bottom line, I can't even call it a good problem to have, because even using the word problem is laughable. It's a good thing to have this level of depth and competition. And again, to be able to make that major score in the recruiting game, that's a major win for Dillingham and company. And that's something that could, really set a fire for the future.
So Jaden was obviously the big news of signing day on Wednesday. There were a few other players that did sign and officially become Sun Devils and were therefore announced by the school. Starting the day off on the offensive line, ASU made an addition. Sean Naa, a 3-star offensive lineman, 6'4", 275-pounder out of California powerhouse St. John's Bosco. You'll hear Saga Tuitele getting a little bit more in depth about what Sean's going to be bringing to the trenches a little bit later on. But obviously, with what ASU was able to do on the offensive line, plus offensive linemen coming to high school in general, you aren't really expecting a year one push from them. But a very talented piece, and also perhaps having the benefit of kind of reestablishing that Bosco pipeline a little again that ASU did have some success with in years past.
I mean, that's a guy you got to be happy with, and that's someone that if you're looking for maybe under the radar, diamond in the rough caliber players, and this guy was like an all-state caliber performer at one of the absolute best programs in the country. If you check those boxes, you're doing something right. ASU lists him at 6'4", 275. That's legit size. You wonder maybe if someone kind of flies under the radar, if he's like a 6'1", 6'2" offensive lineman, just maybe a couple ticks below the typical template. But I mean, that's someone that, man, he seems like a score to me, because when you're accomplishing what you are at the level he did, that's something impressive. You come in, with a victory mindset, championship pedigree, that'll take you somewhere.
Yeah, and so another ASU was able to bolster on the defense a little bit later on that day as well. Linebacker Kavion Thunderbird, 3-star addition, 6'1", 215-pounder, coming over from Chicago. Chose the Sun Devils over some other finalists in Tennessee, Oregon, Colorado, and Purdue.
I mean, that's a good list right there. You look at a guy like that coming from that area, that's a major score. 6'1", 215, so, just get a little size on him, 10, 15 pounds. You'll have some ready-made beef to be able to work with. Again, not dissimilar from Naa, where it's like, man, you're not just filling spots. You're not just adding names. And we've seen that in the past where, you just have spots to fill, and signing day comes around and you sign a guy and hope for the best. These two names are not just space fillers in my estimation. I mean, these are guys that, had some credentials. They had some schools after them. They had accomplishments at the high school level. Players that can play.
Yeah, and ASU was able to kind of round out the day. This was kind of a commitment that ASU that had been on the books for a while, but I think it sounded like that he wanted to get some family stuff in line and to have the official announcement and all. This is of course signed with a FBS school, so a day and a moment that is worthy of celebration. So Kyson Brown, the 3-star running back out of Lancaster, Texas, 5'11", 195. Now this is a very talented back. I mean, obviously we talked about up top. The talent in Texas, and this is a very productive back, pretty dynamic, and this could be a guy that you never know because ASU lost a lot of production out of that backfield. They have some questions, obviously made some additions, has some returning talent, but Kyson Brown's now going to be joining that backfield.
Yeah, someone that, as you mentioned, been committed for a while, one of the few holdovers from the previous staff, if I'm not mistaken, and there was some question whether he would or wouldn't be part of the class, but that is locked in, and in a spot like this, you want to take the talent and make the most of it. So, welcome aboard.
And then one player who is committed publicly but not yet signed as of this recording is a defensive lineman out of New Orleans, Kyron Borda, 6'3", 287-pounder. So we've talked about a lot about ASU has a need on the defensive line. We'll talk about this here in a moment, and we'll talk about some of the to-do list going forward, but. As mentioned, he has until April 1st to sign during this window. But a talented player, obviously a lot of talent overall coming from the state of Louisiana, and 6'3", 287 pounds as a freshman coming out of high school. It's a good lump of clay.
Yeah, and he had some solid programs after him. By all accounts, it doesn't seem like it's a matter to be concerned about that he hasn't signed yet. Certainly don't know what's going on or what the wait is for, but once again, the folks who are the pros in this recruiting game are saying that it's not a matter to hit the panic button, certainly not quite yet, so hopefully that letter comes in sooner rather than later. Again, based on all accounts, should be this week, and that'll be, yet again, another solid acquisition, not just a warm body, somebody that can come in and play.
And obviously there are going to be some other additions to the class that are not among that 43 plus, or 43, I should say 43 and counting, in terms of the walk-ons, preferred walk-ons especially. A lot of those guys are going to be coming from the local ranks as well. And so keep an eye on that as we go forward. One that I did want to talk about a little bit is just because he seems to be one of the nation's elite at what he does, and it's a position that gets often overlooked. Long snapper. So ASU was able to get a local preferred walk-on commitment in this 2023 class in Cole Marzalik from a Millennium High School. 5'11", 195-pounders, good size there, runs a 4.7. The number 6 overall long snapper in the entire country, as rated by Cole's kicking service. And so this is what Cole's had to say about what Cole is going to bring. Marzalik is arguably the most impressive overall prospect in the 2023 class. He's an absolute beast of an athlete and snaps one heck of a football. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and so what happened? ASU lost 2 long snappers, one of which was a young guy that went to Ohio State. Was their concern. Well, they get Slater Zellers in for a year, and he's one of the most accomplished players at his position in the country. So as far as year one, feel good about that. For the future, you've got somebody that you imagine can fill in. Obviously, long snapper is not the most, alluring and headlining position on the roster, but one of those ones that when it doesn't happen well, you certainly know, and games can get really screwed up. So ASU is reloaded, and this is something that we've talked about at multiple positions where you lose players and you might have the instinct to freak out, but ASU's got a plan. So yeah, and if you're paying attention to Twitter and message boards, I mean, there has been a flurry of priority walk-ons from local programs. It's almost like popping up every day. They got to a point where it was almost like the transfer portal was in that early stretch where it was just, bang, bang, bang every day, one after the next. And there are some names that are pretty notable if you follow the local recruiting game. Now, we'll see how these players pan out, but obviously there are a lot of walk-ons that have turned into something special for this program. Above that, in addition to that, this just shows that ASU is creating relationships with these local programs because, giving a guy a priority walk-on opportunity is something that still is a legitimate opportunity to play college football. And again, as ASU's proven with a number of players, Gio Sanders, Trenton Bourguet, the list goes on. You get the opportunity here. You can get on scholarship. You can get in the game. You can become a starter. There are quite a few guys that have made a successful career out of that at Arizona State. So opening up this opportunity and really having a flood of local players in that capacity is something that gives you personnel for depth for the future. And again, it also just creates a positive relationship with local high school programs because you're giving their guys a legitimate shot and opportunity.
Yeah, one of those guys. This might be an addition to the all-name team, as well as just an addition to the Sun Devil roster. Magnum West, the defensive lineman out of Saguaro High School. Now, of course, a new ASU or tight ends coach Jason Mons was formerly at Saguaro, building them into a national powerhouse. Now coached by Zach Hill. So, that's if you have a Saguaro pipeline in addition to the other schools, local powerhouse schools, ASU is continuing to foster relationships with. You're setting yourself up pretty well for the future. So those are the new additions. We went into great detail on the other players on our prior episodes. Encourage you to check our early signing period recap for that. Don't want to waste your time on this one to give you the same information. So those are the 43. Those two episodes, you can hear our thoughts on those 43 new additions. And, of course, that's 25 college transfers, which includes 21 Division I transfers, 15 of which from the Power 5. 15 high school prospects, and 3 JUCO guys. Overall, the major recruiting services, Rivals has ASU's class 52nd overall and 24/7 47th. Now, again, it's kind of an imperfect science because ASU does have so many transfers, and I think the services of both are still trying to figure out how to properly weight the value of transfers in these signing classes. But Rivals did recently put out a list that at ASU number 2 in the country in terms of the quality of their transfer class, behind only Colorado and what Coach Prime is doing out there. So, in any event, a lot of new players, a lot of new talent, and a lot of things to be excited for.
Yeah, if you put it all together, I mean, you really you got to be happy with the product. And ASU kind of got hosed a little bit. It's really odd that they're for all intents and purposes, the signing class should be higher rated. I don't know what the criteria were that led to it, but ASU had 2 players that on the December signing day were 4-star recruits according to Rivals, and now they're 3 stars. They're high 3 stars, but they're still 3 stars.
Conspiracy. Yeah.
So if you have that, and there are a lot of reasons that could be the case. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but it could be better. And I'm not trying to make it a sour grapes thing, but again, it's a talented class. It's something folks should be happy with, especially with the short term that Dillingham and staff had to work with, and still just questions and a lack of answers as it pertains to the NCAA investigation, et cetera, things that a lot of folks were thinking that would just absolutely tank this program. So if you're looking at this in a vacuum, something certainly to be happy with. But man, when you think about this as a stepping stone for the future, that's where I think it gets really, really interesting, because ASU made some noise with this. Did they sound the alarms across the entire world? Maybe not, but they made some noise, got some attention, and man, it's one of those cases where just a slight spark can start an inferno. And if things continue to trend upward, it could get real exciting.
All right, so as we tend to do every year as we round out the signing classes, we like to toss out some unofficial awards for what we've seen to this point. And the field and the pool of potential players here is obviously larger than I think and shows history. But we'll try to do our best. I think obviously the top one here, the crown jewel of the class, is pretty clear. Quarterback Jaden Rashada. We talked off the top about all the reasons why this is such a impactful signing. Before he even steps foot on campus, really, just kind of what it says about the direction of the program, and just kind of can really help establish a new and positive narrative overall in terms of what Sun Devil football under Kenny Dillingham is all about.
Yeah, in these cases, these sort of players give you kind of a double bang for your buck in that they give you the value for what they are and basically also what they stand for. You know, it's pretty common for quarterbacks to have that ability to rally other players. You know, we saw it with Jaden Daniels. We saw it with Manny Wilkins. We've seen it with others, where whether it's just a popularity thing or just being that kind of field leader, the de facto leader that the quarterback typically is, whatever it may be, there's just a different thing that a high-profile quarterback gives you when it comes to being able to encourage others to follow suit. It's different than you see with other positions. It just kind of is what it is. So, again, you get a talented, highly talented quarterback, but you get a guy that might be able to get in the ear of some others, or just even the fact that if other high-profile recruits say, oh, okay, Arizona State got him to go there, now I'm interested. So, again, a ripple effect that could benefit the Sun Devils in several ways.
All right, so now we're going to move on to some immediate impact transfers, some guys that obviously were going to be looked at to come in and plug some holes on this roster, obviously, of which there were many coming in. Three guys that kind of jumped to mind for me. Aaron Frost, the offensive lineman, coming over from Nevada. Obviously, he's a guy that's 6'5", pushing 310. He, I think, is going to be able to really lock down one of those tackle spots for the Sun Devils. Xavier Alford, the safety coming over from USC, I think is going to be a big-time addition. ASU moving to that 4-2-5. He's a guy that I think is going to become a real presence on that defense and on that back line with his experience in the Pac-12. And then Cam Scatteraboo, the running back out of Sac State, wildly productive, very physical runner. Obviously, ASU has a lot of yards to replace with Valladay off to the NFL, and I really like the potential of Cam Scatteraboo. So I think those are three guys that kind of immediately jump to mind in terms of what amongst the this group of transfers, guys that should come in and kind of be impact guys day one.
Literally the same 2 to 3 guys that I was highlighting myself as I'm looking through this list. Alford is one that I think, because I kind of like stuck through. It wasn't really a guy that, obviously not a local high school player, just someone that his name popped up and he came through seemingly pretty quickly. He was a high-profile guy at Texas, went to USC, won something like a defensive perimeter player of the year. He won a team honor at USC. Had some injury issues, but this is somebody who's done it at the college level. And as you lose some players in the secondary, he's someone that can plug right in. You talked about Frost. He's an all-conference caliber player. ASU needs major help on the offensive line, so the ability to come in and contribute right away, that should be a big deal. And Scatteraboo, that's someone that I'm just going to keep a steady eye on. Is it going to be – are we going to see the same sort of thing that we've seen at running back for the past several years? Now, I get that it's under a different coaching staff, but, whether it's ex-Valladay, Rashad White, Eno Benjamin, I mean, we've seen – a heavy set of one guy and then a little bit of another. Are we going to see a, RB1 and then a big gap, or are we going to see a tandem thing with maybe him and Tevin White or some others? So, again, he was massively productive at the level he played. No reason to think he can't come in and contribute at a high level as well. I think he's ready for that jump. We've heard rave reviews about him, and ASU certainly needs it, because obviously, you lose your top couple running backs from last year.
All right, so now we're going to look at a transfer who might not necessarily be getting like the full attention or a lot of the accolades or hype that some others have, but still think is going to play a pretty big role. And for me, that's Travion Brown, the linebacker coming over from Wazoo. Obviously, he has that pre-existing relationship with new linebackers coach A.J. Cooper and defensive coordinator Brian Ward, having played for them with the Cougs. And I just think that his experience and being kind of a rotational starter, 4 years in Pullman, playing in the Pac-12, at one point was a all-conference second teamer, special teams honoree. Is a guy who knows the defense, and ASU has major questions at linebacker. You're losing Kyle Soley, you're losing Merlin Robertson, you lost Connor Soley to a transfer. So a lot of questions at that linebacker spot. So for me, Travion Brown should be talked about a little bit more than I think he is, because I think he's going to play a major role as a starter for this team.
I certainly agree. He should be a top defender from day one. I'll throw another name out there, and this is a name that there has been some buzz that academically there may be some work to do, but he is listed on ASU's release. That's Deshaun Mallory coming over from Michigan State. ASU, of course, desperately needs bodies and talent on defensive line. He brings some experience. I know there are some folks that are massively high on him. As I mentioned, their reports, you go inside the huddle on Devil's Digest, you'll get more detail on it, that, academically it's not necessarily a sure thing according to those reports. But he's someone that, man, it'll be a big deal if ASU is able to, keep him in line, get him to campus, get him in the program, because, once again, you need talent, you need experience, you need depth at defensive line, and he brings you a little bit of everything.
All right, so now we're going to identify a transfer that we think, because that's the cool things about the transfer portal is that a lot of these guys have multiple years to play. This isn't like the old grad transfer ecosystem where you just had the bringing a guy in for that one season, and you hope things work out. A lot of these transfers have multiple years to play, so they'll be potentially in the maroon and gold for quite some time. And for me, the kind of the developmental transfer to keep an eye on is offensive tackle Bram Walden, a local prospect. He's the number one player in the state in the 2021 class. Went up to Oregon, didn't play a whole lot up there, but coming in here a number of years ahead to potentially come in here and lock things down. Obviously with a lot of the more seasoned additions they made on the offensive line, you're not necessarily looking at him to have to come in and be a starter. Now, he certainly will have that opportunity to go in there and earn that job, but you just knowing that with the upside, the years of eligibility that he has remaining, he's back home in place. Give him a couple, a year or two under Coach Joe, ready to roll.
That's a good one. I'm going to go also with a local return transfer. And of course, there are many to pick from. I'm going to say Tate Romney. You hear the superlatives that Sean Aguano, of course, his high school coach, said about him, and others like Chili, Ralph Amsden are guys that are obviously deeply ingrained in the local high school and recruiting scene. Just a lot of superlatives thrown about him coming from a major program in Chandler High School. Of course, he spent a little bit of time at BYU, not a ton of action there, so there's a lot of eligibility remaining in him in a linebacker group where, you're going to need guys for the future. There isn't a ton of depth right now, and you have some instant plug-and-play seniors, so if we're looking past this year, this is someone that can really be a future fixture at linebacker. Once again, I know, he's got the full support of his high school coach, and he's someone that could have a real interesting upside. Maybe, you get him into like the Mike Nixon mold or something like that. Is just kind of a name that I think a lot of folks have thrown out there. But he's someone that, over time, you hope could be like a Nixon or a Kyle Soley or something like that. If he is, that's someone you take every day.
All right, now talking just about the high school additions, these incoming freshmen. There's a lot of these guys that, thanks to perhaps the transfers, may not have to like come in and be a contributor from day one, but there are some guys that you figure could make that jump as well. For me, I think the guy top on that list is Sean Russ, the defensive back who projects probably to safety. Great size, 6'3", 185-pounder. Now, as you mentioned, Joe, a former 4-star, based on his rating on Rivals a couple months ago, but obviously a guy who's well thought of, very talented defensive back, and we'll have that opportunity because you have Chris Edmonds coming back at safety. Perhaps Jordan Clark stays there as well, but after that, you wonder who else is going to fit that mold. Whether it's Xavier Alford, but I think Sean Russ has a chance to get some meaningful reps as a freshman.
And I'll go with the guy who was the other 4-star that got bumped down to a 3-star, Ashley Williams. There's going to be a ton of competition, at the edge to try to get some pass rush. ASU needs to generate that. That obviously was just non-existent last year. They brought in a bunch of players from every rank, whether you're talking about D1 transfers, JUCO transfers. So it's going to be a ton of competition. But man, Williams, a former 4-star, someone who was headed to the SEC, ton of talent. Needs to add some bulk there. He's coming in at 6'5", 225, but he can still do some things with that. If he can get about 10, 15 pounds, on him, if he can get a good, summer in the weight room and at the dinner table there, a ton of talent. Again, someone that had some high pedigree that, whether it's short or long term, figures to make an impact.
All right, and finally, we're going to identify an overall of these 43, a diamond in the rough, a guy that, just could be potentially one of those names that you don't hear a whole lot about, but ultimately, perhaps even year one or maybe down the road, will have a great ROI. And for me, I think that's edge Elijah O'Neal. He obviously was hyper productive at the junior college level as a pass rusher. ASU had some anemic pass rush and sack numbers a year ago. Now, obviously, a change in scheme is going to help hopefully kind of shake things up a little bit there as well, be more aggressive. But I think he's a guy that is well suited. Those guys that come out of the JUCO ranks, often have that hunger, that fight, that chip on the shoulder. And I think that really kind of translates well. Perhaps you see like an Antonio Longino 2.0 a little bit, some similarities there in terms of size as well. So I think Elijah O'Neal could be a guy that ASU fans aren't talking about a whole lot right now, but could be once he caps his career, we're saying that was a damn good signing.
I really like that one as well. I've been high on him. I mean, there's a lot to like about him. Another name I'll throw out, I know Hode Rubino really high on this guy, Corbin Hendricks at wide receiver, 6'3", the general Dallas area from McKinney, Texas there. Again, just someone that this staff is focusing a lot on the state of Texas, especially the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The wide receiver group from ASU, of course, there are a lot of new bodies coming in there, but as you go through, a year or two, you're going to start having a lot of departures. So he's someone that, maybe in year one he makes a little bit of a contribution, but, if you're looking 2-3 years down the road, he could be someone, especially from this freshman class, that stands out as someone that made quite a difference.
All right, so this is the rundown by position that ASU was able to add. 3 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 8 offensive linemen, 9 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 8 DBs, 3 specialists. But they're not done, as you mentioned, Joe. As we kind of close this out, what do you think still should be on ASU's to-do list in the coming weeks and months, whether it's the remaining weeks of the signing period or the transfer window in early March or early May?
You still got to go D-line. That's really the main area there. I know in the past, we were talking about maybe getting another arm out there, getting another quarterback. You're good there now.
Yep.
That's for sure. As you go through the list, you feel good at quarterback. You feel good at running back. If something else were to come available, I wouldn't hate it, but I think you feel good there. Receiver, tight end, you got to be solid. Offensive line, certainly wouldn't hate another opportunity there, especially if someone of a proven caliber comes through. That I think you could be someone that you take, but they have loaded up pretty well there. Again, defensive line, that's going to be the big one. You'll take another linebacker, although you have to continue to stick to the mentality that you're only really going to be running 2 guys out there. So yeah, I would say D-line, especially from the interior perspective, would be a big get. That's the main thing there. I don't know that you're going to be adding a ton more bodies. I know there are folks like in the Huddle on Devil's Digest that are doing scholarship counts and saying that ASU is already over by 5 or 6 or something like that. I don't have that data in front of me or committed to memory. So all things considered, you're feeling pretty good at a lot of areas. If you can fortify that D line, maybe a little bit more on the O line, help out the trenches, you're going to be in good shape there.
Yeah, for me, it's really kind of centered at 2 positions. I'd like to see them, as you talked about, add at least one more linebacker to that group. Somebody with preferably with experience, because obviously you have a guy like Travion Brown who knows this defense and has played a lot at his time at Wazoo, but then a lot of talented but relatively inexperienced guys like Tate Romney, a returning guy like Will Schaefer, Caleb McCullough in that mix. But I want to see them add at least another good experienced body to there. And then for me, I think the biggest number one priority is defensive tackle. I think you need to add at least a couple guys there. Deshaun Mallory coming over from Michigan State helps, but I do think that ASU really needs to lock down and add some more talent on the interior defense line at 3-tech, at nose as well. You get some guys in there, some big, talented, experienced bodies to help fortify the center of that defense, because I like what the ASU has on the edges and the end spots, but man, as we've seen time and time again, if you can control the middle and be dominant with your defensive tackles, that really has a huge ripple effect across your defense. So I think, for me, number one is adding a couple of defensive tackles and then bringing in at least another backer or 2. So that's our rundown of ASU's 2023 signing class, at least to this point. as we mentioned, they're be on the lookout for some more additions in the weeks ahead. But right now, I had a chance to talk with Cole Topham of DevilsDigest.com. Did a real good in-depth analysis piece on Jaden Rashada and both the Kenny Dillingham offenses. And obviously, he with his expertise in terms of the schematic aspects of football, here's my conversation with him in terms of what to expect with Jaden Rashada as a Sun Devil.
All right, we cannot talk Jaden Rashada without getting some X's and O's insight from the one, the only, the man behind Ham Analysis on Substack, Cole Topham. Cole, how are you today?
I'm great. Just finished up a fantastic weekend in Vegas at the Shrine Bowl. Quick turnaround here. I'm still, getting my sleep hours back. But no, I was excited about Jaden Rashada from the moment that his NIL deal with Florida broke down. I instantly knew that Arizona State would be at least in contention for him just because of his relationship with Kenny Dillingham. And I'm glad that I stuck, true to my instincts, and that he is now officially a Sun Devil. I think there's a lot to be excited about with that.
So let's talk about it. Talking about, as a passer, we'll kind of break down different parts of his game. When he's in that pocket with the ball in his hand looking downfield, what are some of the positive things that really jump out to you in your analysis?
I think number one thing is poise. I think it's very rare to see a dual threat mobile quarterback like that have a good gauge of when to exit the pocket when there's pressure and when to hang in there because his reads are developing downfield. And that's the number one thing that I see with Jaden Rashada is he has a really nice gauge of when can I take off running and when am I in danger, and when do I have to stay in there and make sure that I put my receiver in the best position to make a play on the ball. And he just has a really nice ticker of when to do that, and it's just the number one thing on his high school tape that you don't really see in many quarterback prospects, and that's exactly why he was rated as highly as he was.
That's probably news to our great music to ASU fans' ears after the Jaden Daniels era of just kind of maybe the one read and run and all that stuff. Also, in terms of arm talent, accuracy, some of the more kind of tangible aspects, what do you see there?
I think he has a really nice arm talent, and it's more than just how far he can huck the ball. There's so many things about Jaden Rashada that you get excited about. It's the compact release that makes it quicker flying off his fingertips. It's his trajectory of where he places the ball over the shoulder or if he's trying to lead the guy over the middle. He knows where to fit the ball and anticipates what type of throwing windows that he's going to be throwing into. And that's really exciting to see because you don't want a quarterback that has no idea of what type of throw power he needs for a certain throw or how much velocity he needs on it on a sideline shot. You want a quarterback who already has those reps and completed some of those throws on tape where he has a good idea of how those are going to function at the college level. And Jaden Rashada, he's fit throws, between defenders' fingers. He's hurled down sideline shots that just seem effortless to him. His tape is filled with those moments, and that's why I think that he was a high priority for Kenny Dillingham, because Kenny Dillingham's offense is all about taking the top off defenses, using speed to your advantage to make defenses bend to your will. I think that's what Jaden Rashada is going to do over his time here.
And then, on the flip side, what are some of the things, when he, as a passer, that he could possibly, clean up and improve upon in the years ahead?
I think that maybe just some of his mechanics a little bit. There's so much natural ability with Jaden Rashada that you bet on and that you like and that he's been able to show. But it's really just honing in that consistency with how he's dropping back and obviously the shotgun offense and making pre-snap reads and just being a professional and knowing how to command an offense. He already has a good feel for that, but it's just locking in all those minor details that maybe he doesn't even know about. And you get different coaching from the high school to college level. And obviously Dillingham, he's a quarterback whisperer. He's worked with Bo Nix and worked with Jordan Travis. He knows how to get a quarterback on track. And obviously there's a lot of resources here at Arizona State to help Rashada unlock his full potential.
What kind of threat does he pose as a runner when he wants to take off?
I think they're going to get scary with him on read option stuff. where you have you've counteraction on one side, and then Jaden Rashada is throwing a bubble screen on the other, and then they show the same look a few plays later in the drive, and then suddenly Jaden Rashada is in a one-on-one opportunity with the safety, just because he took the ball and he read the edge defender. I think they can do a lot with him because he does have that efficient rushing style where he's a great athlete. Not the fastest guy, but certainly a better athlete than your average, pocket passer. And I think he picks and chooses his when he wants to run. And I think that's the biggest thing that he has going for him is he doesn't resort to his rushing ability when he feels any sort of pressure.
Obviously it's a crowded quarterback room, a couple guys there with some starting experience. How fit do you think Jaden is and ready to perhaps be a year one starter?
I think the high school stats kind of speak for themselves. He was a very productive player in high school, and he played in an offense that prioritizes those explosive passes. And it's going to be a similar offense to, at least on the surface, to the one that he's going to learn at Arizona State. Where he has the disadvantages, Drew Pine and Trenton Bourguet, they've already been through quarterback battles. They have already had starting experience and won against ranked opponents. Like, they have so much experience under their belt that they have to work with and to build off of. And, maybe they learned a few things when they lost the quarterback competition a year ago. And I think that's the biggest thing that Jaden Rashada will have to adapt to is coming in, knowing he has to compete, and chances are he has to be okay with sitting behind those guys and soaking in all of what they do right in order to come back and win that job the next year.
Now, you studied Dillingham's offense when he was at Oregon, and just kind of alluded to a second ago, there's some similarities to what Jaden was running in high school. Overall, just how do you see his skill set fit into kind of that Kenny Dillingham offense?
I think he's a perfect fit. I think he's really the quarterback of the future, like somebody that you bet on with all of the natural talent, the arm strength, the rushing ability, somebody that looks like a modern-day quarterback. And maybe you need to add a little bit more weight to his frame and clean up his mechanics a little bit. But that's kind of what these players from high school to go to college for. It's the job of the coaches to develop the players and bring out the best qualities, and what they do right, maximize that. And I think Kenny Dillingham has the best gauge for any head coach in the NCAA about how to maximize the players on his roster and use their skill sets to their advantage. And I think Jaden Rashada he's going to have a lot of fun with them over these next 3 or 4 years.
So that's some of the X's and O's stuff, but overall in a narrative sense, obviously one of the elite blue chip recruits in this class is now Arizona State Sun Devil. This new staff continues to stack recruiting win over recruiting win. What do you think that Rashada's commitment and signing says about the direction of the program under Kenny Dillingham?
I mean, I think it says that it's a turnaround for sure. I mean, they're already earning 2024 pledges and scheduling official visits for those types of prospects, 5 stars, 4 stars. There's definitely some momentum building in Arizona. And, I mean, ASU, like Kenny Dillingham said it himself, like there's this perception that Arizona State is located in the middle of the desert where there's nothing, and they've got cowboys, riding around on horses, and like that's the lifestyle. And they travel here, and it opens up their eyes. And I think Arizona State has so much more to offer than what the public perception gives them. And once you fix that public perception, once you get Jaden Rashada on board and he starts making plays and generating hype for the school, it really just compounds and builds. With the recruiting staff that they have here, I think it's only going to continue to grow.
And with ASU loading up with a bunch of new faces in the trenches on the offensive line, had a chance to sit down with position group coach Saga Tuitele to get his thoughts on all his new offensive linemen.
So it seems like you got a bunch of new players here over the last couple of weeks. What is it just like? Just kind of like knowing that you have a couple guys coming back that have starting experience, but just bringing in a bunch of guys that it seems like there's a good mix of just guys who have like starting experience at the Power 5 level, and also just guys with tremendous upside for the future.
They're all new to me, so it's a good mixture, like you said, and I'll start with the new guys here. The new guys here, man, there's a reason why they stayed. They want to see it through. They want a great culture, and guys like Emmett Bowl and Joey Ramos and Isaiah Glass, they kind of lead the group. Ben Bray, and it's awesome having them here and bringing in their teammates. With their help is awesome. So you got a mixture of 3 guys returning with a lot of experience. You have guys coming in like Ben Coleman, Lee Fautanu, Aaron Frost, who's played a lot of football, and you mix them in with those young, extremely athletic young O-linemen, Bram Waldron, and Maxie Hanachor, as far as and Kyle Scott. It's just a good mixture of guys. You know, our plan was to spread it out, not just get the 1-year transfers. We wanted to make sure we're spreading it out to where this is not just a 1-year fix. This is a culture that we want to build throughout, for a long time here. So, decided to see them work. We're off the road now, and we're looking at them recruiting, and for my biggest thing for them is to gel together, and it is. They're doing a good job of getting to know each other and understanding that we have to do this together, and that we all need each other. So, a couple guys are out of shape, a couple guys are in shape, and we just gotta continue to progress and be as best we can. And really, when we start in August.
Joey, just how's he coming along in his recovery from the injury last year?
Joey's fine. Yeah, he's moving around, and he's, the tightrope surgeries are, they're a little bit more common than they used to be. So the recovery and all that stuff is a little bit faster than back in the day. So Joey's fine, and he's going to be running around, and he's doing a good job of kind of teaching everybody the ropes about Tempe and about Arizona State and things like that.
Yeah, starting off some of the new guys, Ben Coleman, obviously, an experienced starter coming over at the Pac-12 level.
Yeah.
What are some things that really stand out about him, and why did you want him to bring him in?
Well, first off, talk about Ben as a young man. He's an outstanding young man, outstanding family, great bloodlines. His father played in the NFL, and just a great kid. And he wanted to be a part of something special. And, couple that in with 2.5 years of start experience in this conference, so he's used to the conference, he's used to competition, and his versatility. And he's got a really, really high IQ, football IQ, and regular IQ. But you couple that in with some maturity and coming in understanding that he's got to compete for a spot, and we got to do this together. And it makes it to that's why he was one of the highly rated, recruited guys in the portal this past season. And those are hard to find, those type of young men.
I see a guy that you're looking at more at guard. He's got some versatility to him.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we'll start him off in the inside, but it's nice to have a guy who's actually played tackle in Division I, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys with starting experience in the Division I, in Division I, starting at tackle. So, we're trying to find the best fit for all of them, which Intel will help us win here. So I think we'll start him inside, and we'll go from there, see what he can do and what he can handle.
And so then obviously, ASU loses an experienced center, but you guys bring in a guy, very accomplished in his own right. What are some things that kind of stand out about Leaf?
Same thing. If you talk about the characteristics, it's going to sound like a broken record, but you start off with him as a person. He's got a great family, great support system, and then he's a great kid, humble, but Leaf is as competitive as I've ever met someone, as driven, and he's a guy who wants to be a part of something. And playing in the same conference Leaf played in, and I've seen what he can do, and I was excited. So as soon as I saw him in the portal, I said, "Hey, man, I think it was my first day here. Leaf jumped in the portal, and I was all over him." And again, you have a guy who has 3 years of starting experience in Division I as a center, and played a lot of good football, played against a lot of good people, and he too, very, very high football IQ. Very mature, understands how to be a great teammate, understands how to earn his keep, and again, he's got starting experience at center, and we're going to throw him in the middle, and we're going to see what he can do.
Another Mountain West transfer, Aaron Frost, big dude.
Yeah.
Where do you think that he'll end up on the line, and what are the qualities that he's going to bring to your group in the trenches?
Well, Aaron was one of the best offensive tackles in the Mountain West. He was also one of the most highly recruited offensive linemen in the transfer portal, and the coaching staff did a great job, and his connections with Coach Ward over at when he was at Nevada, and his connection with me. I've known him like Ben Coleman since he was a high school senior, and so I think he's going to be a tackle. He's one of the best tackles in the Mountain West and one of the more sought after tackles out there. And I think he'll start off at tackle. But you're right, he is a big dude. And, he plays the game it's supposed to be played. Very, very violent. He's again family man, outstanding family, outstanding mom and dad, his fiance, and I mean just a young man who's matured. He knows what he wants, and he's bought into being a Sun Devil.
Yeah, and then going to some younger guys like Graham Walden, when he came out of high school in Arizona, was one of the highest rated recruits in the state. What's it mean to get not just like bringing a young offensive lineman with such high upside, but also a local guy as well?
Yeah, I'll start off with Bram again. I didn't know Bram in high school, but I saw his film and his high school film and some of the film he played in at Oregon, and I just saw a supremely athletically talented, gifted kid. Run around and can bend and can get from point A to point B with obstacles in his way and get there without a problem. And then I met him and got to recruit him, and his story, and there was a reason why he was one of the top rated, not just offensive linemen, not just in the state but in the country. And Bram's got a ton of upside, and he's ready to break out. And then the fact that he's home. I mean, that's icing on the cake, and he's home, and he wants to be home. He's playing for his family, and it's a great story with Bram and his family, and this is where he wanted to be. And again, another young man that once he hit the portal, he was very highly recruited, but the connections with Coach Dillingham and the connections here at Arizona State was a benefit for us.
Is he someone that you think can be a factor and get some playing time?
Oh yeah, I mean,
sometime season.
Just looking at him, he's going to compete, and they're all going to compete. We got people forget we've got tackles with a lot of game experience here with Isaiah Glass and Emmett Boley, and you throw in a kid like Aaron Frost, and you throw in like Graham Walden. Now you got some competition, and I expect all four of them that we didn't recruit them if we didn't think they could start. And I know we got really two good tackles that were young last year, and they worked their tails off. So you get a lot of experience between those four guys, and it's going to be exciting to see. And to answer your question, hell yeah, I expect him to be in the mix.
And then Max is a guy who's relatively new to the sport, only a couple of years, but just like the measurables alone, really jump off the page. What do you see from him in his development? Is he going to be a guy that maybe takes a little bit more time before he becomes kind of a factor in the 2D?
Yeah, everyone develops and matures differently. Max is a young man, like you hit it on the head. He was, his family's from Nigeria, and he came over, and he didn't play football until his first year of junior college. So he really didn't know what he was doing. And then this past season, he had a better understanding of it, and he is so athletic, and the upside is so big. You can't pass up on a 6'5", 300 kid who can bend, and he's long, he's athletic, and and same thing. He's driven. I mean, he's so appreciative of things, and like breakfast in the mornings. Man, they didn't have this at junior college, and man, so a kid like that who's young and eager and listens. The stride he made from getting here first last week or 2 weeks ago to now, it's huge, and he's got good leadership and the guys that are helping him out on the offensive line. But a guy like that, you put him in a room with young men that are driven to be successful, then he's got no choice but to be successful. So, and we'll see. If it takes him a little bit more time, it takes him. And I told Max that don't take a backseat to anybody. It may be new to the game, but you're no one say, hey, I'll just wait my turn. No, your turn's now. And I said everybody matures and develops at different stages of life. And it's up to the coaches to figure that out when. I said, you just go out there and play. And you go play as hard as you can, and we'll help you develop you.
And another JUCO guy, and Kyle Scott, as well. Like, what's he going to bring to the mix?
So Kyle's the same thing. He really is an interesting story because he's so athletic. He was a basketball player. He played one season of high school football, and then played in one of the top junior colleges in the country. So structure's there, and the very first thing they said about Kyle over at Riverside is, hey, he's tough. He is tough, which you don't really hear about a basketball player transitioning for the first time in football. and obviously you see his athletic ability. He's got position specific, or he's got position flexibility. He can play whatever he wants. Good high football IQ, great family, and so just excited for him and his development as a junior college guy. And same thing, Kyle's coming in swinging. He wants to come in and play, and I know we fought hard to get him and fended off some late offers, but he's here. And same thing, I've had a long relationship with Kyle when I was recruiting him at my older school, so fortunate for that. And when he met Kenny and Bo and all the other guys on the staff, it was clean. So we expect Kyle to come and compete. I don't know whether it's at tackle. He played his career at tackle at Riverside and played phenomenally. But he's also got the build and power and the athletic ability to play inside. And so we're excited.
And then the most recent addition, Sean coming in. What's he bringing in kind of coming from high school ranks?
Yeah, Sean is from obviously from the powerhouse national champion St. John Bosco, but before that he was at Westlake High School, and so Westlake High School's good, but they don't have the structure at Bosco. So Sean went into Bosco with a chip on his shoulder, and he took advantage of a situation and opportunity, and he ran with it. And Sean, again, he played tackle over at St. John Bosco, and you see his film. He's athletic. He can run. He can change direction. And one of the hardest things to do in football is to restart your feet, and Sean can do that. And he's got a baby face and some baby fat, which is good because we can mold him into the player we think that he can be. And he'll start on the inside. But all the experience of playing in that league and playing in that against the competition down in Southern California, he can play against. He's played against the best that high school has to offer, and he stood up and won. He's got all the accolades that an offensive lineman could ever, and he deserved it to achieve. And so he's got confidence. He's got the drive to be great. And again, another kid with another high IQ that can play multiple positions. Great family, and his mother went to high school out here in Alhambra High School. So, just a guy who wanted to be here. And again, just coming from a big program, structured program like that, a young man just excited to see what he can develop into, and to get a kid like that here is big time.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our guests Cole Topham and Saga Tuitele. Make sure you are dialed in on the social media side of things. As I mentioned, signing period is still open at any time. Some new names could drop, as well as some exciting news that could be on the horizon for Sun Devil football. Make sure you stay with us on the social media side. You can follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devil, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at bdenny29.
You can follow me on all the things at Joe Healy 42. Huge shout out to our sponsors. We haven't forgot about them today. Just a little bit different structure in the format of the show. Huge shout out, as always, the wonderful, delicious DeFalco's Deli. Go have every meal of food that you'll ever have over there. Cactus Sports. Check them out online at cactussports.com. I saw they have a new line of kind of like retro, vintage, old school looking gear. Awesome stuff. You can obviously check out the store location on Mill Avenue, or once again, the website, cactussports.com. Devil's Digest. You got to be in the huddle, man. This recruiting is going nonstop. Basketball, as we know, there's a lot to tell there. Baseball's kicking up here in just a couple weeks. We're going to have some stuff for you, but there's a lot to be heard and seen on Devil's Digest, so check them out. Our wonderful friends at Jones Auto Group. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, look no further than Jones Auto Group. If you're not in the market, go ahead and get in the market. Get a new ride. Come on. You know that you want to. Get on down to Jones Auto Group. Check those folks out. Also, our wonderful friends at Spaghetti Shack. Check them out. New product hitting the, I don't know if shelves is the right word, but garlic bread pizza. I'm looking at it right now, man, and it's either pepperoni, sausage, or both. This looks like the kind of thing that, like the French bread pizza that you'd get when you're a kid that you think about all the time because it was so delicious when you're in like elementary school, that kind of thing. You can get that at Spaghetti Shack. That is catching my eye on a major, major way. And, of course, our wonderful friends at Sun Devil Family Charities. They are doing some Super Bowl squares, so I know time's running out on that because that's coming up. But you can support a charity, have some fun, maybe get some winnings there. Check them out at sundevilfamily.org or look them up on all social media. Just go ahead and search Sun Devil Family Charities. You'll find them, and you can, again, find a way to support a wonderful Sun Devil cause and have some fun, get some winnings while you're doing it.
So definitely support our amazing sponsors, and when you're done with that, drop us a 5-star review, and then join Joe and I and a special guest next week as we preview the Sun Devil baseball season.